Hello and welcome to another Paddocks Club video tutorial. Today I'm going to be taking you through a blog post that I did recently on paddocksblog.com, my blog Thinking Inside the Box. I did a recent post on balcony enclosures and I called it Balcony Enclosure Cheat Sheet. So I'm going to be taking you through what authorization is required to enclose balconies in sectional title schemes, and there's basically two options. Well, let me first take you through a bit of background actually. When a scheme is first established, the building may or may not have balconies, and if it does have balconies, they are often open balconies. Now, over time, owners may choose to enclose those balconies, and there are specific procedures which need to be followed in order for that to be done properly. I know I live in a sectional title scheme in Sea Point, and we have an enclosed balcony. I don't own the flat, so it's not, I wasn't involved in the approval process for that enclosure, but it is really beautiful to have an enclosed balcony. We have these flick-flack type windows like you see in this picture here, so when it's windy you can close it up and you've got the sun and it's just beautiful, but when it's a nice day outside you open these flick-flack windows and it's as if you're standing on the balcony, so you get the best of both worlds, and I can understand why people do want to enclose their balconies. So basically, the authorization process for balcony enclosures depends on the nature of the balcony itself. What type of property is it? Is it part of the section or is it common property? Whether it's subject to exclusive use rights or not, as a piece of common property doesn't actually affect the authorization process, but we'll start by looking at what happens if the balcony actually forms part of the section. So in this case, you'll see on the sectional plan that the balcony is within the solid line, which demarcates the boundary of the section. And this perforated line here just shows us that the balcony is a feature of the section. And if there was a solid line where the perforated line is, then you would know that that balcony is actually not within the section itself. But here it is. So what happens when an owner wants to get authorization to enclose a balcony that's part of the section? Well, the first thing that we need to note is that because it's part of the section, it's not going to be an extension of the section. Enclosing that balcony doesn't trigger the need for Section 24 of the Act to the procedures of Section 24 to be followed. So it's not an extension of the section if the balcony forms part of the section. So all that owner will need to do is to submit the building plans to the trustees for approval before submitting these plans to the local authority. Now the trustees should consider the harmonious appearance rule, which is set out in Prescribed Management Rule 6814, before deciding whether to sign the owner's building plans or not. The harmonious appearance rule basically states that an owner mustn't do anything with this section that is likely to prejudice the harmonious appearance of the building. So if the trustees are happy that that balcony enclosure will not affect the harmonious appearance, then they can sign off those building plans and the owner can submit them to the local authority for approval, and then once approved, go ahead and enclose it. Now, if the balcony forms part of the common property, there will be a solid line before the start of the balcony, and that will indicate that the balcony is not within the section, it's actually common property. It doesn't matter if that balcony, that common property balcony is subject to exclusive use rights or not, that doesn't affect the approval that needs to be given in this case. So, enclosing a common property balcony does trigger the provisions of Section 24 of the Sectional Titles Act, because enclosing a balcony means that you're effectively increasing the floor area and the boundary of the section itself. So that means that it's an extension of a section. Now, in terms of Section 24, a special resolution of the body corporate is required. The owner of the section must get a land surveyor or an architect to draw an amending sectional plan of extension to submit to the Surveyor General for approval. The participation quota schedule must be adjusted to take into account the increased floor area, and if the floor area is being increased, the floor area of that particular section is being increased by more than 10%, then all the mortgagees of sections in the scheme must consent. And this process has been streamlined or made easier in the last few years, whereby these days you don't actually have to get the written permission from the mortgagees. If you send them a notice and they don't object to the increase in the floor area and the change in the participation quota, then they are deemed to have consented. Once these requirements have been met, the Registrar of Deeds will register a sectional plan of extension, which will then be held in the scheme's file at the Deeds Registry. The harmonious appearance rule should also be taken into consideration before the special resolution is passed by the body corporate. So that's just something which the body corporate can consider before voting on the special resolution. And then there's one more consideration which I'd like to talk to you about, and that is bulk. Enclosing a balcony can affect what's known as the floor area ratio or bulk of the property as a whole. This is a zoning requirement that determines what percentage of the earth may be covered with habitable building space, and if there's no bulk left on the property, then the local authority will not approve building plans to enclose a balcony. So that's just something to take into consideration if you're an owner wanting to enclose a balcony, or if you have an owner who wants to enclose a balcony and there's no bulk left on the building. So I hope that's interesting. If you would like to read this in more detail, you can go to paddocksblog.com and it's there. If you have any questions, please post them on the discussion forum and we'll deal with them there. Thank you very much.